Everybody, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the PHNX Suns Podcast, brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's #1 sportsbook app. What?
You seem so sad.
I'm just out of breath already.
Hey, welcome to CC's.
Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe where you get your podcast, and leave us a 5-star review. I'm Lindsay Smith here with Saul Bookman, Gerald Bourget, and Espo. Still got that lingering cough thingy, and sometimes it's hard to just breathe.
Have you guys ever been to CC's?
No.
The salad place?
Pizza place.
Isn't it a pizza and salad buffet thing?
As soon as you walk in, they say...
A long time ago.
They say, hey, welcome to CC's. And then I see CCOTR in our chat, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't think I've ever seen them.
Can we talk about the important thing here?
What?
Why is there fruit on your beanie today? Is there significance to fruit on your beanie?
I just have realistically probably 55 beanies, and I found this one in a drawer that I forgot I had, so I just wore it.
Did you get a Fruit of the Loom sponsorship that you didn't tell us about?
Maybe.
Is there a local farm that you decided to support by buying a beanie?
No, it was just a $3 beanie that I thought was cute. Don't hate on my beanie.
Oh, it is Fruit of the Loom. That is cool.
It's actually underwear. Just so we didn't know.
All right, now that I've given you guys all the death stare to start the show, let's get into it. Our friend Brian Windhorst said today on NBA Today, he's thinking maybe Sunday now for Kevin Durant's first game as a Sun. Bastard. We mentioned yesterday that we think that it'll be Friday based on everything that we've kind of seen as far as ESPN picking up the game and just putting the pieces of the puzzle together, but now I'm a little sad that we might have to wait even longer.
Yeah, you got to imagine when Windhorst was on NBA Today and said that ESPN executives who moved the Suns game onto ESPN Friday went, you could have told me that yesterday.
Right?
Thanks a lot. Now we got Suns Thunder and campaigns return instead of Kevin Durant. We appreciate it.
I mean, get hyped, but I think they're just covering their bases, honestly, by taking that game because there was no guarantee he was going to play in that game. This is what I said yesterday was I think it'll be Friday, but I don't know for sure. And now it's kind of leaning towards more Sunday or Wednesday because tomorrow's only their first practice since the All-Star break, and he still hadn't gotten 3-on-3 or 5-on-5 in the last we had talked to the team. So
I get the health portion, but if he's okay and you feel confident enough, wouldn't you want him to make his debut at home? Wouldn't you want him to make his debut on national television, which Friday is ESPN, Sunday is ABC? I just feel so damn anticlimactic to say Katie's debut at Charlotte, so you're gonna see it at 5:30 on a Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever.
I get that, but their health comes, they got bigger aspirations than making the fans happy about when his debut is.
I get that, but
they're on a 4-game road trip. It's not like they have the option either.
I mean, it's probably more to see how the knee responds to playing in 5-on-5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Than anything.
Probably.
But I don't know. I just, the marketing guy in me is this is worst case scenario. You got this brand new superstar and you're gonna unveil him in freaking Charlotte at 5:30 in Phoenix. It's woo.
I mean, I don't care. I the thing for me is you're losing valuable opportunities to get him into the flow, get guys chemistry, figure out your rotation with your full crew.
Yeah.
But again, the health thing comes first, so I get it. It does suck, though. There's only 22 games left in the season, and he might miss another 1 or 2 before he's back on the court. you have a very limited time to get everybody on the same page, but you got to do what you got to do to take care of your best player now.
Let me be clear. I understand the reality of it. I'm just facetiously saying, wouldn't it be so much nicer to have a little hype to it? But, fine, Charlotte, Wednesday, 5:30, let's do this,
Yeah.
You have zero thoughts and opinions on this?
I had something to say like a couple minutes ago, but now I forgot what it was. So those ticket prices, though, are going to drop for Friday. So you can use the Game Time app and get yourself some. Yeah.
Oh, not until he's officially listed as out.
Oh, he's
They
out.
may try to squeeze every last second out of that and not tell you till Friday afternoon.
Well, I mean, Saul did mention it, so I may as well tell you about it. But the Game Time app is the place to get your tickets last minute. And when you buy them last minute, which if you're waiting to find out if Kevin Durant will play or not, that will probably be a last minute thing because they practice tomorrow, but they want to see how he responds to a full blown practice. So they probably won't tell you till maybe Friday morning at shoot around. I would say Friday morning, Friday afternoon is a pretty solid procrastination on Game Time. Like I think that's a good amount of procrastination to get up to 60% off your tickets.
We have long said you should never buy your tickets until the last hour before the game on the Game Time app because that's when you save real ducats.
Yeah. So if you are looking to check out Friday's game, make sure you download the Game Time app. And the best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in the description of the show, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on any podcast platform that you get your podcast on. The link is in the description of the show. So check it out. Save up to 60% on tickets.
You know why they're probably holding him out? They don't want Gerald to be able to go in the locker room and go, hey, Kev, so first game in Phoenix, how do you feel?
That's what it is.
So, yeah, that's the latest on the Kevin Durant front. But, Gerald, you mentioned the biggest thing that kind of would suck about this is just having a few less games to get into a rhythm, figure things out, because that is something the Suns still have to do. There's a lot of moving pieces to this puzzle still. And I don't envy Monty Williams in the position that he's in and trying to make these decisions, one of the most important ones maybe being who's the fifth starter.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you wrote about that on gophnx.com today. So if you guys want to check out Gerald's latest article, check that out over there. Again, gophnx.com. But let's have a little bit of a conversation about it. I know last week when games were happening, the bigger name that everyone was throwing out, like, is it official? Josh Okogie is that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not the only one in the mix that could potentially land that spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think Okogie is the guy that will most likely win the job, and I think he's the guy that probably should, based on just skill set that you want to have in that starting five with those other four guys. But I'm not quite ready to rule out what could happen in terms of Torrey Craig and Terrence Ross. And this is something that I wrote about in the article. But if you look at it, like how they were recruiting him with Monty, with Matt Ishbia, with James Jones, all being actively involved in recruiting him and making him feel wanted, they did promise him a significant role. I don't know if that means a starting role, because we saw he was more than capable of coming in off the bench and getting up 17 shots in like 20 some minutes. But he is a guy that if he's in the corner, like we've talked about, when you have to worry about these other four options, he's a guy that if you stick him in the corner, he can knock down threes and make you pay. And Monty did emphasize that like he's better defensively than I think people give him credit for. And then with Craig, he's been the consistent fill-in for Cam Johnson and for Jay Crowder all season. He's been good as a starter. He's shooting 40% from three. The offensive rebounding, the defense, the multi-positional defense, those are all things that can help. But I am curious. I'm pretty sure everybody here is on the Okogie train for fifth starter.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it comes down to just simply go with the hot hand for now. That does not have to be the starting five you stick with. You can make a change after 5 games if it's not working, but give the guy who's been playing the best over the last few weeks the opportunity, and his defensive upside is very big, and you're going to need that because you're now missing one of the guys that was your defensive stalwart in Mikal Bridges. So I want to see that lineup when KD comes back, give it a chance, and if Okogie falls off, then maybe consider Torrey Craig. For me, I don't want to see Terrence Ross. I want to see him off the bench. Mm-hmm. Let him shoot as much as he wants off the bench. I don't want to see him taking too many touches away from KD or Book in that starting lineup.
I agree, Espo. I don't think Terrence Ross would be my first choice out of these 3 guys. He would probably be my third choice with Josh Okogie and Torrey Craig being 1A, 1B, depending on the matchup. I just think Terrence Ross, like you said, Gerald, yeah, you could put him in the corner and he's going to knock down some shots. That's great. But I think you're going to want some offense coming off the bench. I think he would be a really solid sixth man for this team. And you've got so much offensive firepower with that starting unit already. And that's not to say that, like you said, Terrence Ross isn't a bad defender. But I still think that Josh Okogie and even Torrey Craig might have a leg up on him at least a little bit in that area.
I think everybody has this wrong.
Yeah?
I do.
Okay.
I have a wild card.
What's your wild card?
And it's going to sound a little funky because they're still not really officially part of the team still.
Oh, so you're assuming we're going to still play on the buyout market?
No, I think Ish Wainwright should be the fourth. I think Ish Wainwright should be the fifth starter. And the reason why is because you don't expect a lot out of him scoring-wise. So he can play a perfect role, spotting up in the corner, giving you some buckets from the perimeter. And then defensively, he's no slouch. And physically, he can match up with the bigger guys that you might have to match up against, especially at power forward. It gives you a little bit of versatility. You're not requiring him. That fifth guy, you don't need a lot from because of who is surrounding him, especially offensively. And so you're looking for somebody that's going to aid in funneling guys to the basket, and hopefully, DA being able to be the finisher that he was a couple years ago and stopping guys at the rim, and somebody that can be a good funnel for the other four. And so I think Ish Wainwright would be perfect in that role. And then you keep your bench as strong as possible with Ross and Torrey Craig and Josh Okogie and Campaign. So I get the sentiment, and I don't know why Espo's watching porn right now, but
it was our YouTube.
Okay, my bad.
It was very upbeat music.
It was very upbeat. It was spicy.
It's going way fast.
Nope. Don't touch that. Keep going.
Train of thought.
Nope.
And so, yeah, I think listen, I like Josh Okogie. I think if he was the fifth starter, cool. But I'm looking at this more from I want as strong a unit from 1 to 10 as possible. How can I make that happen? I would go with Ish Wainwright. Hopefully he gets to sign and stay here.
I mean, Boo Boo Bear in the chat says, I really like Okogie off the bench with all the energy he brings, and I think the bench will lack energy if he starts. I mean, that's a fair point, too. He does always play with the most energy.
And Josh listen, starting is not the same as finishing. And if you're talking about the end of the game, I think Josh Okogie is probably more likely to be there at the end of the game for key matchups down the stretch when you got to defend guys at a high level. And Ish Wainwright would not be in that role. But if we're talking about starting off a game for the first 5 to 7 minutes, and then the spot minutes that you would get throughout, I don't see how you can go wrong with Ish.
But wouldn't you rather have, if all you're looking for is a guy to be solid defensively, push guys towards DA and be able to hit a corner 3 or 2, wouldn't you be better off going Torrey Craig, who has bigger game experience, has been in lineups like that, going with 4 guys that are stars to do the similar role?
The difference to me is that Torrey Craig is far less reliable from 3 to me than Ish Wainwright. Ish is seen significantly less minutes. But to me, I think for what Ish provides, especially from a spot up standpoint, I like his role, especially in that corner, more than I like Torrey Craig's.
I don't know. I'm still of the mindset I'm not even sure Ish will be on this roster if they decide Will Barton or somebody serve them better in the long run.
And I honestly, with the season that Will Barton has had, I would prefer them keep Ish around and continue to develop. But I will say, Ish Wainwright's 3-point percentage is misleading because he gets so few attempts. So he's kind of missed a couple in the last handful of weeks, and it's kind of tanked his 3-point percentage. I agree with you that he's reliable from the corners. I think Craig has done a good job this year. He's shooting 40% from 3. But there is that element of sometimes he just makes some baffling decisions with the ball. There was that one game, I think it was Brooklyn, where the Suns were up by 10 with a couple minutes left, and he committed back-to-back bad turnovers that led to nets, buckets.
Yeah.
And he does that from time to time. I do think playing with that starting 5 helps mitigate some of that. But my question is, if you're starting Torrey or you're starting Ish and you're not getting a point of attack type of defender like Okogie, who are you putting Chris Paul and Devin Booker on? Because one of them is going to have to guard in a playoff series like a Steph Curry or a John Morant or one of those point guards. I think Okogie is better suited for that than either one of those two.
Are we still worried about, like, I get Chris Paul and being worried about his defense, but are we still super concerned about Devin Booker playing defense in a team concept? I'm not. Like, I'm okay.
No, but not.
With him having
but
to take an assignment.
I'm okay with him taking bigger assignments, but if you're having to put, like, the beautiful thing about Mikal was you could put him on star point guards and he could hound the ball and navigate through screens. I don't know that Booker, as much as he's improved defensively and as much as he embraces those challenges, you don't want him on a John Morant. Like, you don't want him on these quick, shifty guards like that. I would feel a lot more comfortable with Book in that situation or with Okogie in that situation.
But that's why I said, like, the beginning of the game is like whatever to me. Like, the most important part is the fourth quarter. Like, what is your lineup looking like in the fourth quarter? And to your point, I think Josh Okogie would certainly get most of the minutes defensively in those fourth quarters, having to chase around a Steph Curry or John Morant or whatever. So that way Booker could reserve his energy. Plus, look at the flexibility from this team right now. Like, outside of DA, who can still guard on the perimeter to a certain degree. You have a lot of versatility 1 through 4 with whoever, whether it be Torrey, Josh, Ish, and that's what you're looking for in the fourth quarter because you're going to switch. I could even see a scenario where they might opt to go without CP3 and have Josh Okogie in there just for defensive purposes to make sure that there's no liability on the defensive side, especially if they're holding a lead. Because you have 2 other closers on the team. You don't need Chris Paul out there. That's the beauty of Kevin Durant.
Right.
I think we might all be right. I think this could be a situation where Monty goes matchup dependent, where if you're playing a team like a Mavs, you have a guy like Ish Wainwright out there who can help body up and and switch and give you a little bit more size. If you're playing or a Pelicans team, you're playing somebody with smaller people that you got to worry about, like a Memphis, it's Okogie. I mean, maybe with Monty, nothing shocks me with this kind of stuff. He went so matchup dependent with throughout this season at times that maybe he views that is a possibility.
But wasn't that something that we kind of knocked him for
throughout
the season as well? Like, why are you changing your game plan for the other opponent instead of sticking to what you're best at?
Lindsay, I didn't say it was the right move. I just said we all may be right because of what Monty has done.
It's a double-edged sword with Monty because I feel like when other coaches make adjustments to certain playoff matchups or what a playoff series is doing, it's, okay, they made a great adjustment. When it's Monty, it's like, why does he keep tailoring what he's doing to what the opponent is doing? I think there's some truth to both sides on that, honestly. But Monty did say the other night when he played like 12 guys, he was like, I've got to get this rotation down to about 9.5, maybe 10 in case of emergency. And I think that involves picking a starter and sticking with them and trying to build that chemistry because you only have 20-some games and KD is apparently going to miss the first 1 or 2 out of the break to build that chemistry before a playoff run. That's hard to do if you're kind of changing your starting lineup on a night-to-night basis. I think there's some room to experiment and say, okay, let's try Torrey, let's try Josh. But at a certain point, you have to pick one and kind of stick with it. And I do worry, like, if you bring Okogie off the bench, okay, you've already got Damian Lee at that spot. Landry Shamet coming back from injury. I don't think he's going to get minutes at this point. But that's 3 guys at that same position.
And maybe Abel Nadering it.
Don't you doubt Monty.
Like if you're playing Campaign and Josh Okogie and Damian Lee and possibly trying to squeeze in Landry Shamet, that's a very undersized
Also,
bench
don't
unit.
Forget about TJ Warren now too.
Right. He can at least play the 3 or the 4, but like
I completely forgot about TJ
and
Warren.
Terrence Ross. Like those are all guys that play the 2, maybe the 3.
You may go an all switchable lineup in that second unit or a 4 switchable guys and a center like Jock, that may be what that second unit becomes, where it's a lot of 6'7", 6'8" guys, that can switch and do a lot of things, and have similar offensive skill sets.
I for one am looking forward to the 30-minute Landry Shamet first game back. I really am.
Okay, but do you guys think we're actually going to see any Baisley at all?
No, I don't think so. I think he's a little too raw for what their playoff ambitions are, especially offensively. If they need a small ball 5 in a pinch, a guy with athleticism, maybe they, dust him off in case of emergency. But other than that, I don't think he's polished enough. Like his minutes were kind of fading with the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are a team that's below 500. I don't see him cracking this rotation this year.
Friday, revenge game. Let's go.
I mean, it would be cool.
14 blocks from Baisley.
Let's go. Let him play the whole game.
Okay, we have a couple questions from the chat. Zach said, could they give that last spot to Saban Lee? Is there any potential Saban Lee gets converted over Ish Wainwright in your mind?
It'd be kind of messed up, but it's not impossible just because their only other backup ball handler is Campaign. I do think the need for Saban Lee is a little less now that Campaign is coming back, and they've had, Damian Lee, Josh Okogie initiate offense, and they just added Kevin Durant, who initiates a ton of offense. So I don't think it's as necessary to have that third ball handler as it was maybe a month ago.
There's a lot of great comments in the chat. I just want to let you all know that I've acknowledged them and I've seen them. But a lot of you guys have mentioned the same things that you guys are talking about just the versatility really is the common theme that you're seeing, because everybody has a different take on who should be the fifth starter or who should be coming off the bench and all this stuff. The problem is that we literally went from a point where we were kind of curious and wondering about, does this bench have enough? To now it feels like, I don't feel like it's an elite bench, but I feel like it's good enough to hold the fort from break to break when you're trying to substitute out your superstars. And so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, when you have 4 starters like the Suns do that are really great, I'm not sure that you need an elite bench. You need a bench of guys that know how to play their role and do the little things. And I think you've got that with this group. And in all likelihood, you're not going to see 5 bench guys all at the same time. You're going to see one of those 4 starter, one of the 4 main starters out there with the bench unit. You're going to stagger things. So there's a lot that Monty has to figure out in a short period of time, but it's better than having absolutely no options to try to figure out in this situation.
Yeah, the staggering thing is going to be key. If there's not 1 or 2 of the core 4 on the court at all times during the playoffs, like there better be foul trouble or something went wrong there. And that's kind of why I think the starting conversation, like obviously it matters more who's finishing games, and I think that's dependent on matchup, who's playing well in a given playoff game. But come playoff time, the starters are going to be logging anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes. So it is something worth thinking about in terms of fit and what you want to get out of that 5th starting spot.
I also think about who I would like to party with. Because if we win the championship, I want to know who I'm standing next to squirt champagne on.
You gotta bring Frank Kaminsky back if we're talking who you want to party with. I feel like that guy could have a good time.
Who is Frank Kaminsky?
What? Who is Frank Kaminsky?
He's dead to me.
He's dead to you.
No. All right, Gerald, back to your point of 1 or 2 guys from that starting unit playing with the guys coming off the bench. Who do you guys think the best case scenario is to have if it's just one guy, let's say, Book or KD or CP or other?
To what?
To have that one starter in with the 4 guys off the bench. If it's just one guy.
Oh, the opposite.
If it's just one guy, who would that best scenario guy be?
I think probably Book or KD, yeah. I think either one of those are capable of anchoring. Yeah, truthfully, you have like 3 great options.
I wanted you to pick one. Pick one.
I mean, singular.
If I have to pick one, I'll pick KD because he's the best player on the roster now. But like either Book or KD, they can anchor a bench-heavy unit. But I do think there is something to staggering it to where Chris Paul can run some offense with DA and put shooters around them. I think there's something to letting those 2 rest and having KD or Book out there. Like they have so many options.
Let's go CP. Let's go DA. Let's go Landry. Let's go Damian. And let's go Ish. Fuck yeah. Light it up from the outside, young fellas.
I like the idea of Chris Paul potentially with the bench, but Devin Booker leading the charge with a bench unit sometimes where he can still be the guy on offense, because when he's out there with KD, it's going to dramatically change the way he is offensively. He's not going to be the only guy that's going to dominate at times.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to give him some opportunity to shine on his own as well, being out there with the bench and maybe one other starter, and give him some time to be that focal point as well.
Liz in the chat said, is Jock still here?
Yes.
That's a great question as well, or at least a topic to lead to a question. Who's your second big?
It's Jock.
I think you go with Jock because he's more of a rhythm player. He needs to get those consistent reps to be able to perform. Biz is a guy that you can throw him in any situation, and he's going to be ready to produce for you. So I think that honestly works at his disadvantage in this case. But I do think, like we saw last week, he was kind of getting pushed around. So Monty turned to Biz, who's a little bit stronger and more athletic, and that helped counter it. So I do think that of all of the bench questions is going to be more matchup dependent.
It is absolutely 1,000,000% matchup dependent for sure. Like if we're playing the Warriors, you're probably more apt to have Jock out there just because they don't have the length and power down low that some other teams have. If you're playing a team like Jokic and you need that flexibility, especially at the rim, then yeah, you probably opt for Biz. Biz defensively is the better play, and then offensively it's Jock. Like, and so
you could just mesh the two.
Yeah, right. Just
stack them on top of
yeah,
each other.
you know, maybe we should ask Jock that when he comes
With a really
back.
big long trench coat.
Like, Jock, for real, like which one would you do?
Jock, would you put yourself in the second?
I'd bench myself.
I really like what Biz brings to the table. Me, not so much. Yeah.
Not so much.
Did you see me last game?
Well, we'll be back at it here in just a few days. Thank goodness. Suns basketball is just around the corner to finally be back in action.
I didn't realize I forgot half the roster in the last 5 days.
We
have a lot of guys now.
It's crazy, just like all the new faces. But then if you fully check out, because I checked out last weekend, like fully checked out, did not get on my phone whatsoever. I was like, wait, hold on. I feel like I forgot a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
So we got to, this is like ramping. This is basically like our preseason, re-ramping back up to get into mid-season form.
I love that somebody in the chat thought I chased Kevin Love away. I'm not sure how I did that.
It's always your fault, Espo. I thought you just knew that by now.
I mean, I probably shouldn't have put in that call begging him to come to Phoenix, but
It's you. You're the problem.
Suns basketball back on Friday. Make sure you guys are prepared and ready to go for the action by picking up some Four Peaks beer to enjoy with your Suns basketball games. They go hand in hand. Sports, especially Suns basketball, is always heightened when you have a nice, tasty cold beverage from Four Peaks on hand as well.
Voice out of my head when now that we're doing Four Peaks.
Four Peaks is not bad. It's real good. See, I can't do it. It's just like country again. Always country. Oh my goodness gracious. But this weekend, Four Peaks is having a really cool thing happening down at their pub in Tempe. It's the Beer Can Derby. It's on February 25th. Again, at Four Peaks 8th Street Pub in Tempe. Kit pickups are open now, so if you want to show that you got the fastest beer can in the valley, sign up through fourpeaks.com/events. You do have to be 21 years or older to enjoy Four Peaks beer, and we ask you enjoy responsibly. But if you go to this event, I need pictures. I need videos. I really want to see what happens because this sounds like so much fun. So much fun.
Speaking of enjoying, we're all sitting around waiting for the big KD debut, but it's 50-50 on when it's actually going to pop up and happen. But don't worry, though. We're not alone. 50% of men have to sit around wondering when their big KD will show up as well. The anticipation is half the fun, but no one wants to be completely disappointed. Isn't that right? I mean, they want to have a high-scoring affair. Isn't that what we all want? We're all just waiting for our big KD to show up. And if you're waiting for your big KD to show up, but you need a little help, our friends at Roman have you taken care of, all right?
I don't understand this one. Your big KD?
No. Don't repeat it,
Just take the K out, and you're going to understand.
No.
Our friends at Roman are here to help, all right? They've got discreet packaging. They've got doctors waiting to help you out. They will mail whatever medication it is that you need ED, whatever you need, they're going to take care of you in that discreet packaging. If your package is discreet, don't worry. Roman's here for you. They're going to take care of you. So that's really what this is about, is making sure that all of you are ready for your big moment,
I feel like
for your big debut, so you can score 70 down low, all right? Or maybe one less. Nice.
Dear God.
I hope Kevin Durant never ever sees this.
I was really waiting for the grower shower reference.
No,
That's all.
don't put ideas in his head.
That's not coming. That's what she said. Anyways, all right, make sure to go over to our friends at Roman and take care of your needs this year and your significant other's needs. That's Roman, and you can go to ro.co/PHNX to take care of things. To learn more about how you can achieve your personal sexual health goals. That's right. Go to ro.co/PHNX to get 20% off your entire order, to get 20% more for your significant other.
Yeah, off your first order. So
I mean, real talk though, real talk. I think one of the cool things about Roman is that it's for guys to be able to ask questions and find out information about things that are not comfortable to talk about. And so I think that's a really cool thing. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Mm-hmm. I do too. No, look, we have fun with these ad reads, but it is a serious subject that some guys are afraid to ask. They don't want to go to a doctor and actually have that conversation. Roman gives you a way to do that and feel comfortable, and the discreet packaging that it comes in, your neighbors ain't going to be snooping when you go to the mailbox going, oh, what's going on with it? You know?
I mean, first of all, I kind of want to know who out there is putting it in crazy packaging.
Well,
what are we seeing out there?
If there's another brand that's well known in that space that has their logo on it, your neighbor's going to know what's going on.
Something out of the mailbox, and all of a sudden, something just goes ding. Like, what the hell?
It just says penis pills in big letters on the packaging, right? You don't want that. I mean, so you don't want that.
As we got needs, okay? Don't judge me.
Hey, I got problems, and I'm taking care of them.
You know, I got a fever. It's more Roman. To get this thing back on track, let's go.
Go ahead and put a pin in that one. Thanks,
Ouch.
guys.
Ouch.
Let's talk about some things we saw on the internet this week. First and foremost, this one from Valley Sports and our friend Scoop B. He talked to Charles Barkley, and Barkley did not hold back. He said he called him a little baby, which I think is kind of rude. We have the video, right? Go ahead, let's play it.
We're glad to have him in Phoenix, and I hope that he can bring a championship to Phoenix. It'd be great. I mean, I live there. If they could win the championship. But he's a great player. You know, he's a little baby a lot of times, but he's a great player, and I hope they do get it done in Phoenix.
Is he a great player?
Yes.
I couldn't tell.
He's a little baby, though.
He's a little baby.
Sometimes.
Look, I personally love this beef now that KD is in Phoenix, because it just becomes petty at this point, right? Because Chuck, as much as he loves the Suns, can't want KD to win a championship in the city that he couldn't get it done in, because then it's like all this trash he's talked about KD, and KD goes, yeah, well, I came to the city and I got them a championship, and your sorry ass didn't. So an end of argument right there.
It's not, though. It's not. And I don't think Charles should take it that way, because he literally didn't play with any other Hall of Famers on the squad. Right?
I don't think he should take it that way either, but it wouldn't surprise me if he feels some type of way about it.
But what I'm saying is like Barkley shouldn't put himself in that category, because literally he first of all, when he lost the finals, he lost it against the best player of all time, and you can argue that, whatever. But he also had one of the best defensive and all-around players of all time on his team too. Those two were going up against Charles Barkley and a bunch of good players, but not Hall of Fame worthy players.
Okay, that's fair on that. And
so he's going to be playing with two other. I mean, Booker's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. CP3 certainly is already a Hall of Famer. And then you have KD, who's going to be a Hall of Famer. And you don't even know what DA might do down the road.
I mean, that's fair if you're looking at 92, 93. But the two following years, Barkley should have been the best player in the league with Jordan gone. Barkley should have led this team to the finals. He had a 3-1 lead against Houston, who was the eventual champion. And everything that has been lore about that time since is Charles didn't take it seriously. Charles went out to drink. Charles didn't actually buckle down to win that series. And look, I'm one of the biggest Charles Barkley fans in the world, but the reality is he didn't get it done. And you talk about playing with Hall of Famers. His first playoff run in Philly, he had Moses Malone. When he went to Houston, he had Hall of Famers around him at the tail end. But look, but CP3, the only definite Hall of Famer
Malone
on the
was like the
Suns.
Celtics version of Shaq at that
Okay,
point.
but look, CP3 ain't exactly CP3, and he's the only surefire Hall of Famer on this Suns roster right now that isn't named Kevin Durant. So I feel like this argument just becomes very petty in a lot of ways at this point, which is entertaining. This is going to be fun because Suns games will be on TNT in the playoffs, and Chuck's not going to back off this shit, and it's going to be entertaining, and that's part of what we want. This is show for part of it. And Chuck's not wrong in his assessment on what KD wasn't able to do in Brooklyn, and that he had a whole hell of a lot of help in Golden State. But this is KD's opportunity to shut up some of the critics.
Yeah, it is. I don't like diminishing either one to back either one's points. I think Chuck was off base in some of the things that he said about Kevin Durant's legacy and how, like, the 2 titles, this is something that a lot of people have said about KD, like the 2 titles in Golden State don't count or they're diminished somehow, even though he was the best player on either team in those series. Like, I have a problem with that, especially now that Kevin Durant is here. Like, nobody Suns related should be trying to diminish that man's accomplishments. Especially because, like he said at the press conference, when we asked him about what it would mean to win a title here, he said he knows what goes into it, what it can do for a franchise in a city. And his focus is to prove himself here in a Suns jersey. I think that matters. I also don't think, like, I hate this beef because they're 2 players that I really like. And Charles Barkley, like, what he did for the city in a very short amount of time here was remarkable. Like, until Kevin Durant arrived, he was the most talented player to ever wear a Suns jersey. So for me, it's one of those things that I just, like, kind of try to ignore and pretend it doesn't exist, like the beef, because I have a problem with both sides of the equation.
I think one of the things that I agree with you, Gerald, in that we don't need to diminish one if we want to praise another, right? And it's kind of the same thing with, like, the MJ and LeBron argument, who's greater, like,
or the Bookman Espo debate.
They both can be great or both be awful. Like, it is what it is, right? But one of the things that I will say about KD, and I don't know if I really quite realize this because I don't think I've ever really watched one of his press conferences upon arrival, like to Brooklyn or to Golden State. But he immediately went into my top 5 based off of what he said about just the process of getting better at the game of basketball and truly loving the game. When he said that, honestly, it's going to piss a lot of people off, but I stopped caring so much about the importance of the ring because I know he's going to give the game his very best shot. I know he's going to put in the work to do everything he possibly can to win us a championship and hold everybody else accountable to do that as well. You can't help but walk into the gym, and the guys have already talked about this, about walking into the gym and seeing KD already in there putting in the work, like trying to get better. And it's about the process, every small little detail, making sure everything is going the way that you practice and play for. So I, for one, respect KD so much more than I think I ever did before. And I have a lot of confidence that we're going to see the very best of this Suns team at some point, based off of the preparation and the work that they're all putting into this. A lot of players, a lot of great players, play the game, and they play it at a very high level. Some of them can't stand the test of time for more than 5 to 8 years because they don't see it the same way as Kevin Durant. They don't see it the same way as maybe LeBron or Kobe or MJ or any of those guys or Book. They see it in a different context, and so their light shines just a little bit shorter and a little dimmer even though at some point they do have maybe the brightest light. KD is one of those ones that kind of stands the test of time. KD could literally play in any era of basketball because he's just about ball. And that's what I love about this. So in regards to Chuck and to KD, if KD wins one, I'm not going to look at Chuck any differently and say, oh, well, you couldn't do this. And I think a majority of fans don't give a shit.
No.
They don't care about that. And for Charles, I hope if they do win the championship, he celebrates it like we all do. And I feel like he will. Yeah, I don't feel like he's going to hold a grudge, and I don't feel like he's going to besmirch a championship ring because KD was finally the one to get it done, and we should celebrate that.
And he's not a guy that's afraid of saying, "Hey, I was wrong." Kind of. I mean, he's
sometimes I feel like
times.
Charles lets his intrusive thoughts just lead.
Oh, yes.
I mean, how he goes about, like, we all think ridiculous shit sometimes, but we think it, and then we're like, maybe not.
Maybe I shouldn't say that.
I don't think he has that
just
filter.
says it, and then it's like, oh, okay, I said it.
I think you brought up an interesting point, though, Saul, because I think back to, and I wasn't there in person and didn't watch it live, but I've seen footage of Barkley's introduction press conference, and it's kind of a lot of bluster. You know, it's the typical Chuck. You go back to Shaq coming here and pointing at his ring finger and all this bluster and everything. And I was very impressed with KD that it was humble. It's as humble as you can be when you're one of the best to play. But it was, I'm here to do a job. I love this game. I love the way that these guys want to approach this game. And I'm going to come out here and I'm going to do whatever I can to try to win.
I mean, it says something about an individual that he would literally almost come to tears talking about Brooklyn, because I feel like to some degree, he feels like he let the game down and that he wasn't able to live up to the hype, but also he wasn't able to lift those other two players to get to his level, to be able to achieve everything that they hoped they would achieve when they all three got to Brooklyn. And I think he feels like, I don't know, KD just seems like a different dude to me now, and I really appreciate him. And dude, I don't know if there's ever going to be a Sun that I root for more hard than KD to win a championship. Not even because of us. It's just because I know he cares. And that's what we all want. We want our athletes to care as much as we do, because we're on a fucking podcast on a 3 o'clock in the afternoon, day after day, talking about a team that we absolutely love. And somebody mentioned it earlier, the amount of fucking trade machine Tuesdays that we had to do to get to this point. Oh my God. I think the trade machine is broken now. Like,
Never again.
It'll be back this summer. Don't you worry.
Again.
So
Emma and I have PTSD from trade machine Tuesday.
So I really love KD, and I really just I fucking want to win, and I want him to win because I know he cares as much as we do.
I have one other thing on the Barkley KD thing. Is there a chance it's just performative art? Because these are two guys that very much understand the drama of the game, understand the art of trolling and going back and forth. Part of me wonders, is this more of a wink, wink, we're going to have some go back and forth a bit on this, but both have a respect deep down for each other?
I'm sure they both respect each other deep down for sure. I would say maybe on Charles's side, but not so much on Kevin Durant's side. I think fair. KD, when he claps back or says something on social media, he genuinely has put thought behind it and truly believes what he's saying. Like when he calls out Shaq for being outrageous or whatever.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think for Barkley, though, a lot of it could be, I know this will get clicks. I know this is good for my brand. I know this is good for my employer's brand. Things of that nature. I think
maybe
he kind of
motivates another
toes the line a little bit sometimes with some hot takes to stay relevant.
And Chuck doesn't give a shit either.
He doesn't.
He doesn't care what he says because he can go on TV and make people laugh and change his mind or further dig in the ground and stick with what he says. But I think with Kevin Durant, he is a guy who hears all the shit that's been said about him, how he ruined the league by going to Golden State, how his titles don't count, how his experiment in Brooklyn that he helped orchestrate failed. I think that's the Kevin Durant that we saw, a guy that, like Saul said, he just wants to go and hoop. He wants to win championships. And I think when you have a guy like Chuck, who's a national figurehead, who is saying these things on national TV every night and the casual viewers hearing them day in and day out, it can get a little tiresome.
Jose in the chat said, no Booker CP love? Come on. They've been here longer and they don't have a thing. Pom-poms flying everywhere for this guy. Well, the topic was Charles Barkley and KD. That's why we're talking about KD. But I will say this. There's never been a place where Kevin Durant has gone where there has been as little drama as possible ever.
Yeah, they're all cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, CP, pretty quiet superstar. Devin Booker, definitely a quiet superstar. Doesn't go out there, doesn't put his brand out there very much, except when he's calculated about it. Like, he doesn't fuck up. He just doesn't. Like, I can't remember if Booker's ever fucked up in terms of social media, clapping back at somebody, saying the wrong thing. He hasn't done it. Like, he just is. He's as humble a superstar as you're going to come across. Kevin Durant, I think we all had this impression of what Kevin Durant was prior to him coming here. And then again, that opening press conference just left such an impact that it's okay to praise him and say, like, I appreciate the mindset and the mentality that he has. That doesn't mean that's degrading the other two, because the other two are equally as great and phenomenal at what they've done. And Devin Booker's done so much to try and be a part of this valley. And CP3 has tried to do so much he could to try and win a championship. It just hasn't clicked and it hasn't happened. Well, we're hoping KD's going to change that. So that's why we're praising KD. Right?
And I mean, like, aside from, like, Book is obviously the son that I think most people would want to see win a title because he's been here. He's the face of the franchise. And then, like, but after that, like, CP's probably next on my list just because he hasn't won one yet. It would be really cool to see him finally get over that hump and cement his place. It should already be there as one of the top 3-point guards of all time, but fully do it in terms of legacy and achievements. Kevin Durant would be amazing just because he gets to rewrite some of that narrative about how, oh, it was only because he was on a super team and he joined a 70-win team that he was able to ball out like that. Like, no, he's balled out everywhere.
Technically, he did just join a 64-win team from last year, too.
But that's the thing that people always forget is, like, you have to lose players from that team to make it work. Like, obviously, the Warriors are a little bit different because they still had their big three. But the Suns, they lost 2 of their 4 best players to make it happen. Like, and people always have that double standard of, like, oh, we don't take the Suns seriously as title contenders, but now that it's convenient that we can diminish KD, we're gonna say, oh, they were a super team.
I love
like,
that
pick
I pulled
one.
that ripcord on accident. Sorry.
Well, no, it's not even you. It's that we continually to see that the Suns are dismissed as a real title threat. And then as soon as Kevin Durant joins, it's like, oh, well, they better win. They have a super team now. Like, where was the super team top before?
Kevin Durant is the super team.
It's so stupid.
I hate the narrative that if he doesn't win it this year, this is a massive disappointment. Now, would I love to see them win it? Yes, of course. But the reality is he's coming in with 20 games left in the regular season, and they got to figure it out. I think next year is the more likely for them to be the hands down favorite to win a title, because you'll have this year that he gets ingrained, training camp, all those things, so I think it's great if he wins one this year. They have to win it next year to prove the value of the deal.
I don't know if it's going to be said, but I think they have to win it this year. Not because I want them to, and not because I don't think they'll win it next year. It's because I genuinely don't know what Chris Paul is going to do after this season. And I think if they won it, I think he'd be done. I think he would retire, and I think he'd hang it up. But I can't even. I mean, shit. Can you guys remember a player or athlete who finally won one in, like, year, what's he, in 18, 19, 20 right now? Mm-hmm. Like, finally got to the end of his career and finally got it done, and still
it'd be super emotional.
And still be like a viable part of that, not just like
like
some
a Gary
guy that
Payton
came
on the Heat, like,
that doesn't to me, that's like, okay, that's cool. Not that it doesn't count, but it's not the same as a still a starter in the NBA playing at a high level. Like, I'm trying to think of one, and I can't really think of one.
The closest you can get is probably Jason Kidd, and it's nowhere near to the same degree on the Mavs, because he was older and he was still starting and he played a key role on that team.
Shawn Marion on that team as well,
but not like a Chris Paul would be in this case. It's kind of unprecedented. I feel like
what you're forgetting, Saul, is when CP retires, Kyrie's here next year. So
stop it.
Anyways, Lindsay,
you think he's joking?
We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Not for this show.
Just had to lob that last
grenade. That as well. But we have talked a lot about rings in this conversation.
Well, it's because we got a really big team. We need some
And
really big rings.
there was something that I saw again on the internet this week. This one from Raheem Palmer that said the NBA's biggest problem is that everyone is convinced that the only thing that matters is championships. The attitude is basically F the regular season All-Star Game dunk contest,
That's not what
the
it
fans,
says.
and the money they spend or the time they spend caring. It's all about championship or bust. So obviously we talked about maybe Charles Barkley feeling some type of way. We talk about the shade that he gets from Shaq for not winning a ring. We talked about how important it is, like solidifying Chris Paul's career by winning a ring. When did this become like the narrative? When did this become the number one thing that defines somebody's career? And how do we fix it?
It always has been, and I don't think you need to fix it because the whole point of this business is to be the last team standing. And I understand 1 of 30 teams get it done, right? But that's what everybody's striving for. Now, we've gotten a little crazy that it completely diminishes a guy's career, but it should always all be about the ring. That's the goal. That's what you're all striving for. If you go into a season and you're like, oh, well, our goal isn't to win a title, well, then you're doing a disservice to your fans.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
The goal is always to win a championship, but I'm talking like it has gotten to the point, in my opinion, it feels like if you don't accomplish that ultimate goal of winning a championship, your career is now less than somebody else who did win a championship, even if they were like a role player on that team in some people's eyes. And I don't think that's fair. And that's what I'm saying. When did it get to the point where we can now sit there and talk shit about Charles Barkley, or if Chris Paul doesn't end up getting it done, and say their career is less than this guy over here because they didn't win a championship, when Chris Paul is one of the best to ever play this game in his role?
It depends on the tier you're talking about. When you get to the top of the top, that is what's going to separate guys, right?
Yes.
I mean, and that's why, like, you're not talking about Gary Payton and CP3 because Gary Payton won that ring with the Heat like you guys were talking about. You're talking about the difference between Jason Kidd and a CP3.
Oh, he's already better than Jason Kidd.
But that's where the arguments are going to be, or a Magic Johnson and a CP3.
Well, that's not even close.
You know, but like, I mean, this is where the arguments will be. Is in these greats of the game, the ring makes a difference in people's minds, because when you're blessed with some of the best talent to ever be in the league, and you don't get it done, but the guy that's maybe 2 spots below you on some kind of ranking of the best ever did get it done, that's where the arguments come
I think it depends on what argument you're trying to make. Like, if you're trying to make an argument between just regular good players from different eras, sure, you could throw the ring in there, and that's fine. When you're talking about the elite, as Espo said, that matters. But the other thing that matters is the journey. The journey that you're going on to try and get some of these things done and win a championship at these levels. And if your journey was filled with shortcuts, load managing for 3 or 4 games because you just want to save yourself for the playoffs, even though you're healthy, you know, things like that, that's when the championship argument for me falls shallow. It's like, okay, well, you load manage yourself. But meanwhile, like in different eras, guys were playing 70, 75 games a year, and they were injured, and then they were still finding ways to win championships. Like, I get the load management to a degree, but I also think that there's something about guys that respect and embrace what the NBA is and what it should represent to all of the fans, and the amount of time and effort that they put into it. So I don't feel like the ring is the only argument. It is the key argument, but I think there's other arguments that can poke holes in other people's legacies and bring them down a notch in order to really rack and stack people accordingly, in my opinion.
Right. I think rings are something that need to be looked at just like the other accolades, like All-Stars, All-NBAs.
But should All-Stars even count anymore?
I think that they should. I think
it's
the
not
NBA
taken seriously anymore, then why would that
But that's
count?
what I'm saying. They need to revamp the All-Star game so that it matters, because it's going to continue to matter how many times that shows up. Because like Saul was saying, the journey, the popularity, the just being an ambassador of the game is what being an All-Star is all about. So it should matter. They need to revamp it. But my point is, like, it should be one of those accolades that is not the end all be all, because we've talked about, when we talked about, would you rather have Charles Barkley's career or Robert Horry's? Like, Robert Horry was a role player, true and true, but he won titles. So some people are crazy enough to would rather have Robert Horry's career. And for me, I'd rather live as an all-time great who has that asterisk, that what if, that slightly separates him from being in the pantheon. And I think for a guy like Chris Paul, who is on the cusp and just has that one last achievement to get in there, like that, it does matter, but it's only when you get to that pantheon. And I do think, like, it shouldn't be like, this is a team sport. You can't help, especially before the era of player empowerment. Sometimes you couldn't help what team you're on, what team you get drafted to. Like, what if you get traded for a guy that comes in and suddenly that team wins a title, it makes you look bad. Like, those are things that are completely out of your control. So I do think the championship thing matters, but for a guy like a Chris Paul, it shouldn't matter as much. It's just the last barrier to getting him into the elite of the elite.
Well, I mean, does anybody really argue that Chris Paul isn't one of the greatest of all time?
No.
Because
They
he doesn't have a
do.
ring.
They do.
I mean,
Some people are saying Jason Kidd had a better career than Chris Paul because he had a ring that he won late in his career in Dallas, as opposed to Chris Paul, who is, like, I would only put Magic and Steph definitively above him. Isaiah Thomas, you could make an argument. But, like, other than that, I wouldn't have a single other point guard that I'd rather have than Chris Paul.
One I
No
find
John Stockton?
No.
longevity.
Stop
That's
it.
why stop.
Well, and it'll
stop it.
continue
That's
to
a
be
crazy
thing,
comment,
too,
Saul.
when
know
you
what
start
else is crazy?
comparing
Roman.
younger players or up and coming players to former players as well. That'll be used against them in those arguments.
The one that I always found fascinating was the Dirk Charles Barkley power forward debate. And I think the ring makes a difference there because they were very close in talent. Dirk found a way to get a team that wasn't a super team by any stretch of the imagination over the hump. And I think that makes a difference in that argument.
Well, the other difference in our argument is, Dirk revolutionized the power forward position. He was one of the best stretch fours in NBA history, if not the best. And then you look at Charles Barkley, and he kind of revolutionized the game in a different way because of his size and power and stature at the time when he was at his peak. Like, nobody, I don't give a shit what anybody says on the board. If they say he's 6'7", whatever, that dude is 6'4", and every bit of it, and just dominating guys like Karl Malone and Hakeem Olajuwon, out rebounding those guys. Like, so they were both great in their respective eras, but the ring does matter, and it is a separator. It is a separator. It's not the determining factor.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
I just think it matters too much at this point in time.
For
But
some
Musab
people,
in the chat, Musab, you got it right. Said it's all about having fun and making friends along the way.
It is the only argument I will use for Michael Jordan.
He didn't make friends along the way.
He did
No,
not.
I mean, like that he's got 6 rings,
Okay.
6 Finals MVPs.
All right, we've got some more stuff for you guys, but first, more furniture. Yes, we got to tell you about our friends over at More Furniture. They helped provide a lot of the furniture for our studio and offices here at PHNX, and we thank them very much so for all of that because it is incredibly comfortable, especially in our little viewing area. The recliners that we got from More Furniture, hands down the best chairs that we have in this entire office. They've got cup holders. They got phone chargers. You can recline. They got a little headrest that you can make more plump or flat depending on what your preference is. You feel, like if you like your pillows a little bit softer or a little bit harder, all that kind of
I
stuff.
thought we were going back to a Roman
No.
reign.
They also have white glove delivery, which makes the delivery process so much better because they take care of all the heavy lifting, literally and figuratively. You can save big on the best furniture in the Valley when you head to morefurniture.com. Also, DraftKings Sportsbook app, one of our favorite apps here at PHNX. We always end up getting into arguments these days about whose pick is the best pick on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Thank God basketball is coming back so we can argue some more. If you guys have not already, be sure to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and get your friends to download it as well, so that you can create arguments within your friend group as well. But make sure you all use that promo code PHNX because new customers who sign up using that promo code can bet $5 on the NBA and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Again, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, with code PHNX. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. I'm coming for you, Saul. I'm coming for you on that top spot on our leaderboard with our DraftKings picks, just so you know.
Dreaming is free.
It is. I'm only probably going to keep the same energy through tomorrow, Friday, and then I'll be tired again.
Okay.
I have plans
But
to
watch
stay
out
in
on
third.
Friday.
Don't worry.
All right. The last thing we have for you guys that we saw on the internet this week is a tweet from Gambo over at Arizona Sports. He said, "Will be interesting to see if Matt Ishbia follows up on some plans that were put in place before Robert Sarver was suspended. Those include year-long effort to honor Jerry Colangelo. The Central Pavilion was to be renamed Colangelo Hall with a video wall playing highlights of his role in nurturing professional sports in Arizona. The project, which included a large video ring showing footage of the Suns Ring of Honor members, was to be unveiled near the start of the season with the induction of Amare, Stoudemire, and Shawn Marion into the ring." So this was an interesting kind of nugget of information. One, because I feel like it was just sort of like Robert Sarver's long and gone. Matt Ishbia is leading this franchise now. Let's bygone be bygones. I didn't love that, but I also feel like Matt Ishbia should be able to come in and make decisions based on how he feels the fan base should be represented as far as who they want in the Ring of Honor or what they're wanting to see from the Ring of Honor within that building. He also said in an article and in his introductory press conference that he called Jerry Colangelo during the whole sale process. So you know those relationships are being built and fostered already. I just would like to give him the grace to be able to move forward in ways that he feels best, not following in the footsteps of whoever came before.
We are 2 weeks removed from him being the new owner of the Suns. And we're already, I know Gambo has information that some of us don't. That's cool. And I'm not going to degrade this, but I will also say, it is Matt Ishbia's franchise. And unless it's written in a contract or on paper, it don't matter. It just don't matter. And Matt Ishbia, I have 0.01% of a doubt that Matt Ishbia is going to do something. Whatever he does, it's always going to be in the best interest of the team. And speaking of which, going to the arena the other day and listening to that KD press conference, I am now in full agreement with what Espo said about the Ring of Honor inside the arena being LED on the digital boards, because we were in there and you couldn't see anything. You couldn't see any of the Ring of Honor members because they had the whole KD graphic going around the perimeter. And I was like, it'd be kind of cool for photos or even for him to be sitting there and see all the greats of Suns past right there in the arena. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling.
Look, I'm sure Gambo had legit info that this was being considered. But my problem with it was going to happen, but it didn't happen because of suspension, it's got to be horseshit, right? Because Robert Sarver got suspended in the middle of October. If they were going to do this kind of stuff and have some giant video wall and all these things, you would have had to been working on it before, or he got suspended in September, October is when the season starts. You would have had to been working on it. So I don't believe that this was going to happen day one when the season started.
I feel like if it was, the only thing that they might have decided to nix would be the induction of those guys, because then he couldn't participate in it. But the setup and the build out and the video board and all that could have still gone forward. So I don't know that makes a difference. To me, it seems like this was something that was pitched or brought up as a potential addition later on that never maybe got the attention that it deserved because there were other things that popped up that maybe needed a little bit more attention at the time. Again, I'm with you. Does Ishbia need to do something? And would we love to see him make a permanent Ring of Honor structure and get these guys in the Ring of Honor? Of course. Okay. But that's his prerogative.
I want to get to Matt Ishbia, but I got to tell one story.
Okay.
All right. Get in the Wayback Machine with me. It's 2012, I believe. I'm a young digital person with the Phoenix Suns sitting in a marketing meeting.
I was a young, hot intern.
Yeah, I was. I'm not saying that with the time that it was in Suns history, but I mean, we're in marketing meetings, and we said, what are the things that we should do? What do fans want? And the big one was Al McCoy in the Ring of Honor. And we were point blank told Robert does not want to put Al McCoy in the Ring of Honor. He says he's already got the media room. Why would we want to put him in? And everybody said, I don't know, maybe so you do it before he's at a point where he can't actually take part in the ceremony, like when you put Coach McLeod in the Ring of Honor. And it got pushed back, and finally it happened, right? That's why I find it a little hard to believe some of all this, because I had firsthand experience with it. But Saul, you're 100% right. Matt Ishbia can scrap these plans. If we can put the picture back up, this looked like a child's play version of what a Ring of Honor should be. This little circle above people that looks like it's like maybe the width of 5 people standing around, and a video board that's maybe like 8 feet tall that looks like freaking tic-tac-toe. Like, I'm sorry.
You thought it was a lamp.
I'm sorry, but that is not how you honor the greatest of all time to do it for your franchise. You put it back in the bowl. So when guys are warming up out there, they're looking at the greats. During the game, the greats are there as part of your franchise. It's why teams used to hang banners to honor their retired jerseys, because they're there in the building, not in the front area where people are walking around trying to buy their shirt at the freaking team shop. That's not the way you honor your fans. Matt Ishbia, please do right by the history of this franchise, by the guys who built this franchise with their blood, sweat, and tears, how they played, and put it back physically in the arena and have it mean something. Because if you induct Shawn Marion and Amare Stoudemire, who both need to be in there, in some rinky-dink, lame-ass ring that's sitting in the front pavilion of your arena, it feels pretty hokey when it should be on the court where you unveil it like every other guy who's gone into that ring.
And I feel like Ishbia is the type of guy who would do his due diligence, ask people both who have had longevity within the organization, ask longtime fans, because that was one thing that he was very upfront about in his press conference, was that he really wants to enhance the fan experience. He really wants to be a part of this community and give back to the community in the way the fans are looking for. Now, obviously, that all sounds great. You want to see it actually like play out, but he sounds like he seems like the kind of guy who would at least do the homework to figure out what kind of has been wrong with this or how people feel about it, and then move accordingly.
Right.
So
he's been very consistent about saying the first 60, 90, 120 days are about coming in, listening, evaluating what needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did the biggest legwork by getting Kevin Durant in his first 24 hours. So I'm willing to give him some time on this to figure out what a good Ring of Honor situation would be. But yeah, we know Shawn Marion needs to be in there very soon. So I'm looking forward to that. But someone asked earlier if there's going to be a G League team. Yes, he did say there is going to be a G League team when he sat down in our one-on-one interview a few weeks back. So we don't know what the timeline is, but there will be one of those.
That's the thing. A lot of these things are going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
But I want
a lot of these things are going to take time. You got to give them some grace to be able to get just acclimated into a brand new organization.
But there's also another aspect to this that I think we're all acting like he's walking into this arena and he's never seen another arena before or any of the other NBA or college. Hell, he was part of one of the better college teams in NCAA history. You know, there's certain ways that you can appreciate the greats of the game and your organization. And he's literally been a part of some of those things. You know, he sponsors the seats or whatever over at the Pistons arena. You think that he can't see Isaiah Thomas's banner hanging from the rafters and the championship banner? Like, he sees all this. And I guarantee you, when he looks at our arena, which I didn't even notice until the other day, like Espo pointed this out about the Ring of Honor. And then I started noticing all these other things, like, for instance, like the other banners for like the other greats, or even championship banners from like the Mercury or the Rattlers. They're like literally up against the wall, kind of out of the view. Like if you're on the other side of the arena, it's kind of hard to see it. you should have them dangling right there in the middle of the court as long as they don't, stop the Jumbotron. Like you want to be able to see these jerseys like in the championship banners, like celebrate it. Don't try to hide it. It feels like they're kind of obscure and hidden. I don't know why.
How about Lindsay? How about this? I'll give him until
we can name the transformation center the Lindsay Smith Transformation Center, by the way.
That's fine with me. Look, why don't we make it this? In October, when they unveil the championship banner, they unveil the new Ring of Honor as well. That should give him plenty of time to get it done.
There you go.
We'll
I think
see.
next season would be that's a realistic timeline for doing this.
Yeah, it's not happening before there's 20 games left. It's not happening before the end of this
absolutely not.
season.
And he got Kevin Durant before the end of the trade deadline, which you didn't think he'd do. So I'm just saying. You might work on
I'll
it
eat
different.
another shoe if they put it.
Oh
No,
my
I'm just
God,
kidding.
stop.
You still haven't eaten the first one.
Oh, that's happening March 16th.
March
that day.
16th?
I already got the shoes already on its way.
Okay.
I'm already locked and loaded.
All right,
And
final.
we have a medic on site.
Final thing of the show, super chat from Laking. Thank you for your super chat. Said, want to hear your thoughts on who takes the last shot, KD or Book, or does it matter or does it matter about the matchup?
Should we save this for tomorrow? I feel like this could be a really good.
I mean, he gave us a
topic,
super
or do
chat
we-
now. We can
All
just give
right.
us our 2
All
cents
right.
real quick.
Let's do it.
It's KD all day, every day. Sorry.
I think KD's the primary option. I think you can do a lot of tricky stuff with having DA as a roller and Devin Booker obviously being able to hit that shot too. I don't think there is a bad option.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset. I don't care if it's KD or Book. Whoever's got the better look is what I want.
Yeah.
Agreed. As long as it goes in, that's all that
Yeah.
matters.
Give me either of them.
I would
I'm
prefer
okay
not
with
to be in a situation where the final shot matters. That's the best goal for
it.
me,
Touche.
or like the number one goal for me. But thank you for your super chat. We appreciate you. All right. We're going to leave now. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you all. As always, we'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. with another show for you. So plan to come hang out with us. Until then, you can follow the show on Twitter at PHNX_Suns. You can follow me at Lindsay Smith AZ. You can follow Saul at Saul_Bookman. You can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourget. And of course, you can follow Espo at Espo. I'm just honest, you guys. Espo, take us home.
Well, we're all waiting to see the big KD and D Book together. Just think about it. Ahoy, hoy.
PHNX though, Lindsay, Gerald, Espo. Saw past the ball, we here to turn up the tempo. Got to understand me, I'll always rep the family. Rally in the valley like Dan G, no plan B. Always on the job, my team move like the mob. Turn the beat on, I throw it down like DA on the live. Best combo since KJ.